Good morning, Bitcoiners. What is up today? I'm having a great day. Will is having a great day. We are here with Justin from Fedimint. The reason I'm having a great day, and I don't know if anybody you know this, but the longest time I've been talking about how I'm about to have a baby, and that baby has finally arrived. He is here. He was born on August 21st, and honestly, it's the most amazing thing in the world. We got Bitcoin babies, and I'm a dad, and I'm just excited about it. So I had to tell everybody I'm feeling really good about life. I'm feeling really good about things moving forward, about this podcast, about the projects that we're working on. And I don't know. I just had to say something. Will, sometimes you just got to come on the show and just talk about your life. And right now, my life is being a dad. And that's just the most amazing thing we could have.
Yep. Congratulations to you and your wife and beautiful baby boy. Yeah, it's a thrilling experience. To all the dads out there, like, have more babies. Trevor, you and your wife, are you guys thinking about number 2 yet? I know you're only a week in, but like,
What's funny about that is that, the whole time she's pregnant, she's like, I don't know if I'm going to do this again. And then as it progressed, she's like, I'm definitely not doing this again. I'm not going through this again. And I shit you not, 3 hours after she had him, she looks down at him and she goes, I want another one. And I'm like,
yep.
oh my gosh, don't you remember? You just went through this. You just hated pregnancy. I mean, she didn't hate pregnancy, but she definitely, she went through it. My wife went through it. And, to all the ladies out there, like, look, I'm a man. I can't say what that experience is like. I know that it's not an easy experience, bringing a child into this world, but I'm gonna be honest. My wife made that look easy. She made it look like it was a walk in the park. And I have so much admiration and respect for my wife and for women in general because of what they can do, what they do for us. As a father, I am so grateful to my wife for bringing my son, my prodigy, my legacy, my reason for being into existence. And so, it's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing.
It surely is. Yeah. There's no way I could bear a similar burden as mothers in pregnancy or thereafter, but I do love the heck out of being a dad, and I'm excited for you and your dad journey.
Awesome. Well, I am too. We'll see. I know that, Bitcoin works in 4-year cycles, so I'm excited to see what happens 4 years from now when my son is is it toddler at 4, or is it not? Is it just
I mean,
child?
I feel like, so I have a 1.5-year-old. He's gonna be 2 in November, and I feel like he's been a toddler for maybe 4 or 5 months already. Like,
Gotcha.
so I don't know. It's somewhere between like a year and a half to, and then maybe to age 3.5 is about the toddler time.
All right. Well, I'm excited for toddler time because I'm a little bit of an excited person all the time. I've got high energy, and whenever my nieces and nephews would come around, I'd always be roughhousing with them and picking on them and stuff, and they love it. And so, like, the baby phase is really great. I love being able to look into his eyes and just hold him and stuff like that. But I can't wait till he gets to start interacting with me and like roughhousing and playing, and it's just, yeah, I'm just so excited. But enough about babies. Okay, this is not a baby podcast. This is a mining podcast.
We could turn it into babies for mining.
Bitcoin babies for mining. Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's ask Scott. No, but today we have Justin from Fedimint with us. Justin is an open source developer working on Fedimint and currently supported by Spiral and OpenSats. He is the organizer of the Minneapolis BitDev Socratic Seminar, and he is currently focused on building out Fedimint's Lightning Gateway functionality, but is also interested in database systems, federated financial applications, and Frost. He recently built a Fedimint module for signing Nostr events called Roaster. And Justin worked for Microsoft and Google during the last 10 years, and his background is in database systems and data processing systems. So not a whole lot about mining, but definitely something that's very like mining adjacent. The Fedimint protocol, I don't know very much about it, but I do know that it's, it supports community custody, financial privacy, and scaling solutions. So that's something that kind of is like right up in the alley of Bitcoin mining and just holding Bitcoin in general. So we're gonna get him on, but before we do that, I want to tell you guys about the Mastermind Club. The Mastermind Club is the best way for aspiring miners like ourselves to get a good foothold in the world of Bitcoin mining. When you join the Mastermind Club, you join a supportive community of like-minded individuals who meet weekly to share insights, exchange ideas, and provide mutual encouragement on the exhilarating world journey of Bitcoin mining. So this Mastermind Club is led by seasoned pros, avid Bitcoiners, and our group sessions offer a space to brainstorm innovative strategies and stay motivated towards your mining goals, small or large. Mining is a very difficult thing to get your head around, and so to have a community of people who are trying to build something along the same lines as you is super helpful. So every week we hold accountability sessions to help keep you on track and within your budget. And as a member, you'll gain access to our monthly deep dive sessions, which we hold every single month. We cover a wide range of technical topics such as heat management, site optimization, electrical infrastructure, and so much more. This month, we're actually doing PPAs, so that's going to be an interesting one. I'm excited about that. Taylor Taller is going to be coming and talking to us about that. Also, as a member, you gain access to our back catalog of those deep dives so you can catch up with the rest of the group. Acquire the knowledge and the skills needed to navigate the complexities of mining operations with confidence and ease with the Mastermind Club. What is it that sets us apart is, in addition to our group dynamic value add, our members get personalized one-on-one sessions with Bitcoin Mining World's team, industry veterans ready to offer tailored guidance and support. Plus, you'll get the opportunity to connect directly with Scott Offord himself. Our members also gain privileged access to pre-sales and minimum order quantities. If you don't know, a lot of places don't offer 1 to 5 miner sales. A lot of times they want to do like 100, they want to do 300, 500. So if you join the Mastermind Club, Scott will sell you 1 machine, 2 machines, 3 machines, which is a lot easier if you're trying to get into the space. So you can buy a brand new machine and not have to buy a whole boatload of them. So whether you're a budding enthusiast eager to explore the world of Bitcoin mining or a current miner seeking to expand your operations and stay ahead of the curve, our Mastermind Club is your partner in success. So join our Mastermind Club today and let us help you on your Bitcoin mining journey. Go to bitcoinminingworld.com or scan the QR code that you see on the screen that I did not share. Let me share that real quick. Boom, scan that QR code. If you go to that QR code, you'll be able to join our Mastermind Club and get started on your journey of Bitcoin mining. All right, let's get into it. Let's bring Justin up. Justin, welcome to the Build a Mine podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Oh, we're happy to have you, man. We're excited to sit here and talk about Fedimint and all the things that you've been working on. Real quick, let's see. I had this. So I just want to be 100% honest. 99% of this stuff about Fedimint and these layer 2 protocols, I think it's a layer 2, kind of goes over my head. And I don't want to say I'm too dense, but it's kind of hard for me to grasp how most of this stuff works. So I'm hoping to use our time today to understand Fedimint product or the Fedimint modules that you were telling me a little bit about. And I also want to learn how it can help Bitcoin miners with their financial security. But before we do the background or dive into that, I'd like to get a little bit about your background in Bitcoin and how you got started working in database systems for Google and Microsoft.
Sure. Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. So I spent most of my career at Microsoft. I only interned at Google for about a summer. But I got into Microsoft. I actually was living in Madison at the time. And there was a small sort of Microsoft lab there focused on database systems that I became a part of. So from even the time that I was in undergrad and grad school, I was sort of always involved in database systems. So I graduated and then ended up working at Microsoft for a while. And, it's always kind of a struggle between being interested in Bitcoin and, the more traditional tech world. But I think databases in general are kind of very universally applicable to almost every software development aspect, right? They're kind of the core bedrock, whether you're, developing a website or, a new layer 2 protocol. So they're useful anywhere. So I, gained a lot of valuable skills throughout that time period.
For sure. Yeah. I would say that database systems and that, again, that stuff goes way over my head. I'm a contractor by trade. You know, I swing hammers, man. Like dealing with computers is a whole new world for me. So like what was that thing that kind of like got you like really hooked in it, or have you always been really computer science geared?
Yeah, my parents definitely pushed me that way. You know, they're both electrical engineers. They actually met at Illinois, so we have a bit of a family rivalry there. But yeah, you know, my dad, my mom definitely pushed me towards database systems. I mean, my dad had a lot of experience in software and doing stuff like that. So, you know, we've always been interested in that growing up too. You know, I've been programming since I was, you know, even before high school kind of thing. And yeah, databases, there's a saying in databases that every problem is a database problem. Like there's a lot of very like computer sciencey problems that would exist in operating systems, and they also exist in databases. So it's kind of a very bedrock kind of part of computer science that, like I said, is really useful in any software development position. So.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, Bitcoin kind of goes hand in hand with computer science and databases and things like that. It's a blockchain on in computer world
Right.
ethos or whatever you want to call it. So, you know, tell us a little bit about how you found Bitcoin. You know, how long did it take for you to go from like Bitcoin is this to like, yeah, Bitcoin, you know, like everybody has
Sure.
that little journey.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because, like, you know, Bitcoin at times is described as a database. You know, like a very shitty kind of slow database. But at its core, it's kind of what it's doing. But yeah, you know, I was actually exposed to Bitcoin not originally through the tech side. I had, you know, some friends that were sort of hardcore libertarian ANCAP types, and you know, was originally exposed to it through them. You know, as with most people, didn't really take it seriously until, for me, it was an undergrad. I actually had a computer security. I was taking a computer security course at Wisconsin, and the professor put Bitcoin on the final, which was pretty unique. I still actually have my tests
What
and
year
all
was
my
that,
answers.
Justin? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What year?
That was 2014.
Wow.
Yeah, early 2014, which was pretty crazy.
You want to shout out the professor?
Yeah, his name was Thomas Ristenpart. Great professor. I don't think he's still at Wisconsin, but yeah, that the having Bitcoin on a final like that back then was certainly
Progressive.
not the mainstream thing to do.
Yeah, we had when I was running the Milwaukee meetup in 2013 and 14, we had a couple university professors come to the meetup.
Oh, that's cool.
Mostly Marquette and UWM, but also one or two from UW.
Yeah.
And it wasn't him, but you know, it just goes to show you, like it was kind of permeating the consciousness of academia already way back then.
Yeah, and he was a little bit of a younger guy, you know, not like not someone who'd been there for years and years, but yeah. So for me, it was actually like taking because that he forced us to like read the white paper, and you know, I had actual questions on it. So we had to, you know, I had to answer questions like precisely like, how does Bitcoin mining work? Like, what is the process for like grinding for a nonce and whatnot? So that, I think that part was actually really what opened my eyes to, it's like, okay, this is something worth paying attention to, like understanding how proof of work works and why it makes transactions secure, like why you get some probabilistic finality, and especially as, you know, more blocks come in. So that, for me, that was kind of the light bulb moment. It took me a little longer to actually get into, you know, software development on Bitcoin. But yeah, I think, you know, since then I've been kind of obsessed with it in different ways.
Yeah, everybody, well, I don't want to say everybody, but like definitely myself and a lot of people that I've met is like, once that light bulb kind of turns on, you get obsessed with Bitcoin in one way, shape, or form, because, you know, it's freedom money and the aspects of just being able to hold your own wealth and like like store your value and time and all these things. Like they really carry you into this sleepless night effect of just like taking every moment that you can and learning absolutely as much as you can about Bitcoin.
Right.
You know, like I've only been in Bitcoin for about, I think it's just about 3 years now is when I bought my first Satoshis, you know, back in 2021 is when I bought my first Satoshis. But either way, like when that light bulb clicked is like, I spent hours just like watching videos from Andreas Antonopoulos and listening to Saifedean or reading Saifedean's book and listening to all kinds of different people about it. So, you know, you got into Bitcoin. You had a professor that was making you, you know, read the white paper and answer questions and stuff like that. What was like that thing that actually made it click for you?
Well, on that, it was understanding proof of work.
Okay.
That was pretty fundamental for me. At the time too, I was, you know, going into grad school and studying distributed systems and learning about some other consensus algorithms, things like Paxos and Raft. And those are definitely more like traditional kind of computer science consensus algorithms. And, you know, Bitcoin just took this whole different approach, which I found, for me, that was sort of the thing that I first found interesting. But like you said, you know, just 2 seconds ago, I don't think I fully grasped like the full nature of, you know, what Bitcoin's about as far as like self-custody and the monetary supply and like the, you know, the issuance schedule and all that kind of stuff. So that, you know, that for me, that stuff came, you know, over time. But definitely, yeah, proof of work and understanding that was kind of the first touch point for me as far as like, this is, yeah, like I said, worth paying attention to.
For sure. So you kind of sent me some stuff to talk about that, you know, you've been involved in. And before we get into Fedimint and what you're working on there,
Sure.
I'd like to hear a little bit about your mining story. So you say that you've got, you know, failed CPU mining to mining or GPU mining shitcoins. So, you know,
Yeah.
everybody goes through one of these phases where they go from like Bitcoin to shitcoin back to Bitcoin. So let's hear it. Put it out on the table for us.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, this was, you know, around the same time as the professor stuff. And I remember during that semester, like downloading the, you know, Bitcoin Core on my laptop and trying to run it. Like, oh, we could, you know, there's this process called mining and you can get some free money out of it. At that point, we kind of saw, it's like, oh, let's try to get some free money for running a program on your computer. And yeah, very clearly, like, you know, especially in 2014, like CPU mining was long gone at that point, right? The difficulty was way too high. So yeah, kind of put that aside for a little while, you know, focused on school for a bit. A few years later, when, you know, I finally did have some money, I had some GPUs just from, you know, gaming and stuff. And again, if you remember around that time, there was a lot of new shitcoins were becoming more popular for being like memory hard mining algorithms. So things like Litecoin and even Ethereum back when they were proof of work, their mining algorithm wasn't the same as Bitcoin, right? It didn't use SHA-256. And they tried to make it, they called memory hard, such that it was constrained on memory rather than processing power, with the idea that, you know, they would target GPUs. So I had a few GPUs. I tried, you know, just connecting them to my computer, and it's kind of, I learned a lot doing that. I think it was a worthwhile thing to do, even you know, even if you're a hardcore Bitcoiner. Like, I think just going through that process of learning how to hook all that stuff up is worthwhile. But with GPUs, you know, they come with these like they plug into the PCIe bus on your computer, and usually they do the X16 ones, like the wide ones, so they fit. And that's because they want as much data to be transferred back and forth between the motherboard and the GPU. But with mining, you don't really need that, right? Because there's not actually a lot of communication between the GPU and the motherboard. It's, you know, really just sending over the stuff you need to run the mining algorithm. So you can kind of actually connect a lot of these into just the X1 slots. So instead of the X16, you can get these special cords that go down to X1. So I had a few of those, and I was trying to connect like 3 GPUs to my motherboard. And you know, I hooked up NiceHash, and I was mining Zcash for a little while. Yeah, it worked. And then one day you know, rather naive, I was running a lot of these at the same time, plugged some stuff in a little wrong, and I fried all the GPUs. So at that point, I was like, all right, I'm done. I'm done with the GPU mining. But from there, so a few years later, I eventually got into actual Bitcoin mining. This was around sometime in 2020. It was like right after the Chinese mining ban, if you remember that, when hash rate dipped like 40% or something like that.
There were so many Chinese bans, and a few of them were mining bans. Are you talking
Right.
about the one at the end of 2021?
Yes. Oh, was it 2021? I can't remember if it was 2021 or 2020.
I can find it on the chart, but I have a hard time kind of remembering which month around that
Right.
time. But you know, if you look at the price chart, there's kind of like this 2 camel hump shape in the chart. It's the decline of the first hump.
Okay, it was one of those. Yeah, I think it was definitely like summer, and I remember thinking like, oh, going into winter, you know, difficulty is super low, or it should be lower for a while. You know, maybe with COVID there'll be some supply chain restraints, like maybe the hash rate won't go up a lot. So I decided to buy. I knew, you know, someone from my community. I bought a few S9s, and I actually have them still right there. They're not plugged in, but yeah, I ran those for at least a year, and they were really convenient in the winter. I had one in my garage. You know, my garage isn't heated, and I'm located in Minneapolis, and Minneapolis gets cold. It's you know, negative degrees Fahrenheit here, so it was really nice. I think just having one of those in my garage would elevate the temperature like at least 10 degrees. So yeah, I did that for a little while, and at some point, you know, as I guess with all mining machines, all ASICs, the difficulty got too high, and it wasn't worth the noise and heat anymore, so I unplugged them. But yeah, it's kind of been my mining journey. I'm not mining anymore right now, but it's been fun to learn all that stuff in the process. Yeah.
What do you think it would take to bring you back to mining? I'm just curious. Like you've tinkered, you've experimented with different, you know, consensus algorithms, and you've even used kind of like alternative reasons for mining, such as heat reuse and stuff like that. So in what world and what circumstances would have to happen to bring you back to mine Bitcoin again?
That's a good question. I don't think I'm ever going to go back to mining the shit coins.
Good.
I think I would need. I think I would just need time and a little more capital, right? Like I don't think I can mine with these S9s anymore. You know, given my power rate, I would need to get some higher end machines. I have heard in Minnesota, there's this deal you can do with Xcel Energy, where if you like tell them that you're heating your house via electricity, they'll give you a lower power rate. Only for the winter though. So then over the summer it goes back up. So yeah, for me to mine again, I think I would need to, you know, get a new machine, and then, you know, figure out how to potentially lower my power rate to make it make sense. But I loved running those. I mean, like I said, the S9 in the garage, like, given that it was in the garage, like you couldn't really hear it, and I actually underclocked it a decent amount. Because S9s apparently run more efficient when you underclock them. And even underclocked, like it was still outputting a decent amount of heat. So yeah, that was really, really nice to have.
you touched on it a little bit, like throughout that story, is like how much you learned through the process of mining Bitcoin. And I think that's been very similar for myself and for a lot of other people who have started in Bitcoin and then kind of went on that mining journey. Is, I didn't really know anything about computers, and I still really don't. But the process of like mining Bitcoin for myself has been like an iterative process where I've learned more and more about how computers actually communicate with its like with the internet and with
Yeah.
like within itself, like how the boards work, and just like learning to not be so scared of like plugging this thing in over here or hooking this up over here or writing this down. It's been a really fun process for myself. And you talk about your S9, which is funny because I have this S9 right here, and that was my first S9 that I used to heat my home. And
Nice.
it was a really cool process. And I just wanted to highlight that because I think that anybody who's like got a decent power rate, maybe it's not great, but if it's around 12, 10, 8 cents a kilowatt hour, like you can get an S9 and you can plug that in to heat your home throughout the winter. And like me, I save 20% on my electric bill. That's not insignificant. I know it's not like amazing, and I'm not out here making millions of dollars or thousands of dollars or even hundreds of dollars, but I was able to save 20% on my electric bill, and that's kind of cool. So
Yeah,
that's where I come at it.
Exactly. And you get to earn a little Bitcoin along the way. And, especially if you got in, a few years ago, hold that Bitcoin, like now you're definitely in the profit, right? The price has gone up.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, check it out. So let's kind of move on from mining. I know that, and we'll probably touch on it a little bit more, but I want to hear I want to start diving into Fedimint. So you've gotten a grant from OpenSats and Spiral. Is that for your work in Fedimint?
Yeah. So I've been working on Fedimint for about 2 years now. 2 years in October. And yeah, I've gotten grants from Spiral, OpenSats, and I got one from the Human Rights Foundation last year.
Awesome. Well, just for our listeners, for Will and myself, like we said kind of in the beginning of this, I don't know very much about Fedimint. I know a little bit about it, kind of like barely iceberg top tip level. So
Sure.
if you could just kind of explain to us what it is and why it's useful, and then kind of like why you believe in the project.
Yeah, just same here. I don't know enough about it. I mean, I've heard about it when it emerged. I was aware of it, and of course, it kind of just in my mind, it's just the kind of Uncle Jim scenario that we used to theorize about on message boards like 10 years ago in Bitcoin. But before we go fully deep in, and where we just let you rip, Justin, and explain to the audience and ourselves and just give us the full deep dive 101 detail, I want to tell the audience about the mining conference. This episode today is brought to you by the mining conference. It's coming up real soon. Join us this fall for an exciting event in Brainerd, Minnesota, and it'll no doubt shape the future of the Bitcoin mining space. We've got a ton of great guests lined up. Tickets are flying off the shelves right now, and it's sponsored by Just for Crypto, which will feature industry leaders, thought-provoking speakers, and we'll have tons of builders from around the mining industry. So, it is a great place for you to build your network, your professional network, learn about anything you need to kind of fill the gaps in your knowledge so that we can help you along your Bitcoin mining journey. Participants at the mining conference can also buy a ticket to our one-day build a mine crash course, which is a fraction of the cost of our normal build a mine 3-day boot camp. So don't miss out on that opportunity. It's a great event. We usually do the build a mine boot camps a couple times a year, and we've condensed the program into a one-day crash course at a great price. So make sure you come a day early for that event as well. Mark your calendars. This fall, September 27th through 29th in Brainerd, Minnesota, a great vacation destination. Bring the family. It's a beautiful time of year to be in Minnesota around the lakes. And let's build the future of Bitcoin mining together. So go to theminingconference.com to learn more, or bitcoinminingworld.com, and get your tickets now. So with that said, yeah, Justin, we're going to let you rip on, everything Fedimint, and just bring us the full 411 so we can get up to speed with the rest of the crowd.
Sure. Yeah. First I'll say, come to Minnesota. I'm in Minnesota. We have a great Bitcoin community here. So excited for that conference. Should be cool. Yeah, and definitely stop me if I'm going too fast, or if you guys have any.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have questions. We'll
Yeah.
jump in. But yeah, just let it rip.
Sure. So Fedimint is it's a federated Shaman eCash protocol. So I'm going to explain what each of those things mean. And some of your listeners might have heard of another eCash protocol called Cashew. And I'll say right now, the main difference between Fedimint and Cashew is that Cashew is not federated. And so I can get into that. So essentially, what federated means it's run by multiple servers. So in Fedimint, we call these guardians sometimes, or different servers. So like you might have a Fedimint that's made up of like four guardians, for instance, and ideally all four of these guardians would be different people, right? So Fedimint is federated, and ideally you can actually scale higher than that, right? I think right now I think we support up to 20 size federations, but there's some ongoing work to make it bigger. So eCash is, and this is something that Cashew and Fedimint share, is actually a quite old idea. It was invented by this guy named David Shaw, and really what underpins eCash is a cryptographic trick called a blind signature. So a blind signature, this is all technical as I'll get, but it's essentially a way of like an entity, in this case the Federation, to sign something but not know what it's signing. And it seems a little unintuitive when you say it like that initially, is why would you ever want to sign something that you don't know what you're signing? But for cash, like eCash, it's actually quite useful, because you can think of it like it's actually very close to a digital form of like dollar bills. When you transfer a dollar bill in real life, you don't need someone else to sign off on that transaction. But in the digital realm, you sort of need an entity to prevent double spends, which is what Bitcoin solves. But if in the Fedimint world, in the eCash world, you need another entity, in this case the Federation, to prevent double spends. So the way that's done is the Federation will use these blind signatures to sign off on eCash notes that the users can then transfer amongst themselves. So, say we had a Federation that the three of us were involved with, I could pay Trevor some eCash, and then Trevor could pay Will. And then if you wanted to, you could then redeem that eCash for Bitcoin, and the Federation would have no way of linking the transactions between myself to Trevor and to Will. It would just see, oh, this is a valid note, and give you the Bitcoin.
And Justin, is it the case that some of the stuff I'm aware of and I understand, but some of it I don't, and I presume a lot of our audience doesn't. So I'm just going to ask kind of dumb beginner questions. But the eCash, the unit of account that's being transmitted, is this dollar pegged? Like, what's the denomination and what's the actual currency unit?
Yeah. So you theoretically can do anything. Fedimint uses Bitcoin, so it's denominated in sats or millisats, which is what the Lightning Network uses. So it's a 1-to-1 peg. So and federations, at least, they're programmed to run at full reserve. Now we can get into the nuance of that and the trust assumptions behind what Fedimint's offering, but yeah, at the default, when everything's running correctly, there will be a 1-to-1 peg between Bitcoin and eCash issued, and then and it's all denominated in sats. So.
Got it. Yeah. And so it's kind of like, I mentioned the Uncle Jim scenario, and basically, help me explain this in the best way. But my understanding, going back years, before we thought of layer 2 scaling in the Bitcoin world, we were theorizing, like, how do we get average people to run nodes who aren't like diehards for the network?
Right.
They just want to use it to accomplish some end goal that they have. And there was a lot of Bitcoin users in the space, well, not in the space at all, but they were a user group in Bitcoin that needed Bitcoin for the problems that it solved. And they didn't care about being on Reddit or being in Bitcoin Talk or whatever. And so those of us who were trying to figure out how to engage this user group even more, or at least just serve them. And we realized scaling limitations back then. So the Uncle Jim sort of paradigm was discussed, which is essentially you just have someone in town that you trust and they're running the node, and you can deposit your money with them like a mini bank. And then they are kind of your verifier, and they kind of custody different accounts for different members of the village, if you will. And that had the name Uncle Jim. And so when I think of Fedimint, in my very primitive understanding of it, it's like a formalized, sophisticated software solution for being an Uncle Jim. And I didn't want to derail your earlier points, but I thought it was helpful to some audience.
Yeah, that sets the stage maybe a bit. So I was just talking about the privacy aspects there. I think what you described is great as far as how where it fits in terms of Bitcoin layer 2s. So I agree with almost all that. I think the things to call out is that it is custodial, right? It's custodial in terms of the Bitcoin. So when you use a Fedimint, you are custodying the Bitcoin with the federation. And obviously, some Bitcoiners have different opinions as far as if custody is a good thing or not, right? I think we're already seeing that people use custodians, right? Whether that's third-party custodians, and I think Fedimint and Cashew as well are really like a strict improvement in terms of how custodians work. Like ideally, you don't want to be using these solutions unless you know the custodian who is running it, and that's where the Uncle Jim thing comes in. Is that if you want to use Fedimint or Cashew, you should ideally be using one of people that you know, and it's kind of like the person you can go punch, right? If they end up running off with your money, you can go find them, and you have at least some recourse there. Like the current state of the art for custodians, at least, is to trust people you've never met before, right? And we've already seen what happens with exchanges and whatnot that will run off with your Bitcoin. So
it's a lot harder for someone who you've shaken their hand for you to steal their money, basically, is what you're getting
precisely at. Yeah. And so it is important to underline that it is custodial though. And Fedimint is kind of in a middle ground between fully custodial and non-custodial, because it is federated. So it's not just one entity that controls the funds. It's controlled in a multi-sig, essentially, is where the Bitcoin is held. Now I wanted to mention, it's not intended for savings or for long-term custody of Bitcoin. It's more intended to be an easy to use Lightning wallet. So getting back to the Uncle Jim thing, I think especially nowadays we're seeing that running non-custodial Lightning wallets is difficult. I think it's definitely harder than running your own Bitcoin node. It requires some technical expertise as far as setting it up, and then sourcing liquidity and managing liquidity is
the whole channel balancing thing is it's hard to understand, and let alone execute.
It's an active process, yeah. And so and this is sort of what I work on in Fedimint, is that Fedimint is a way of sort of outsourcing that to your community. So you can have maybe someone that in the community really likes running a Lightning node, and if they're willing to provide liquidity into a Fedimint, then you could use a Fedimint essentially as a Lightning wallet. And that's kind of where it connects with the broader Bitcoin ecosystem, is when you use Fedimint at a user experience level, ideally you just download an app, join a federation, and you can use it essentially as a normal Lightning wallet. and you don't have to know, all the technical details behind what's happening. But behind the scenes, there's essentially what we call a Lightning gateway. And the gateway provides sort of the swap service between the Fedimint and the broader Lightning network. So you can use, ideally you use Fedimint as, a Lightning wallet that you can pay Lightning invoices. And, as with any Lightning wallet, you want to keep your funds at a manageable level, right? And especially since Fedimint is custodial with the Bitcoin, you don't want to be storing your life savings on there. But using it for a spending wallet is kind of like that's the goal. That's the use case for sure.
So what is the process for someone who's never used Lightning and never used Fedimint? What is the process for me to go from like my normal Bitcoin wallet to being able to transact with a Fedimint?
Yeah. So so the first step would be to download a Bitcoin wallet that supports Fedimint. As of right now, there's two. There's Fedi and Mutiny wallet. Mutiny wallet's support will be running out at the end of the year, but you can still use Fedi. And then you need to find a federation to join. So that's probably the hardest part at this point. There's not too many federations that have popped up yet, because it does take a little bit more technical expertise to run a federation. Right. But as a user, if you do find one, and there's some there are some global ones, there's some public ones.
Should we talk a little bit about what's happening with Mutiny? I don't know all the details, but I presume you have a lot more information than I do about it. And I do think it's like interesting current events and with the, political or regulatory landscape that's going on. So do you want to dive into that briefly before we continue talking about federations and how do we use it?
Sure. I mean, I'll just say I love working with those guys. There's some of the most talented people in the Bitcoin space. I worked with Ben on a few things on the Fedimint side, and I love what they built for like the Fedimint integration. Their idea on their end was that Fedimint is like sort of a staging ground. Like if you don't have a lot of funds, you can sort of begin to accumulate in a Fedimint, and then once you do have enough funds, you can swap that over to self-custodial Lightning. And they did that because it's expensive, and it's probably going to only become more expensive to actually own a UTXO, and you need a UTXO to open a Lightning channel. So I thought it was a very nice solution. I don't, around the stuff that has happened recently with them shutting down, I don't know many details other than the details that are public.
Yeah, I mean, there are public details so folks can learn about it, but just for context, it's a decision that the team has made because of what they're seeing in terms of the regulatory enforcement in the United States, and because they're US based, they are, I think, making the decision to sunset or shut down or pause.
Yeah, I don't know if that was mainly. I think there was some other things that they're pivoting, right? They're not shutting down Mutiny, like the company. They're still doing some other things. And I know, regarding the regulatory stuff, they had a good stance where they never had custody of the funds. They weren't running a Fedimint or anything. They offered to have integration there. So I don't know if they had much. Again, I can't speak for them. I don't know what their exposure would have been. But
I'll confess, my knowledge of the story is not as thoroughly researched as it probably should be to talk about it. But the announcement of their shutdown did come around the same time as some other arrests and some other companies deciding to shutter, Bitcoin related companies. Usually you see this with like crypto companies, not so much Bitcoin companies, but we've started to see that with some Bitcoin centric companies anyway.
Right. Yeah. And I wish them the best. Hopefully, I love their wallet, and hopefully I know they're going to build some new cool stuff. So anyway, so you can still use Mutiny right now, and you can, Mutiny is all open source, so you can actually self-host it yourself as well. So they have Fedimint support as well. And so just getting back to the user experience stuff, I think, yeah, once you find a federation, and you can use one of these public ones, all you have to do is join, and there's sort of like a join code that you grab, and you can put in the app. And then at that point, you can start using it as a normal Lightning wallet. Probably the best UX improvement over a normal one is that you do not need to source inbound liquidity. Mostly because presumably whoever's running the Fedimint, there's a gateway, like one of these Lightning gateways that has been sort of pre-set up that would already be providing that for you at a small fee, like a routing fee kind of thing. So yeah, you'd be able to receive and send Bitcoin. You could either send Bitcoin in over the Lightning network, hold it there, and you can use it as a normal Lightning wallet at that point.
So real quick, the way that I'm understanding this, because it is custodial, unless I'm running my own federation or I know someone personally that's running my own federation, I still have to basically trust somebody that I've never met to run the federation that I'm joining, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the primary difference between something like Cashew and Fedimint, is that Fedimint, because it's federated, you don't necessarily have to just trust one entity.
Okay.
Ideally, it's multiple people. With Cashew, it's just one.
I think it's also important for people to realize, I'm not knocking custodial services. I think that, something that you touched on earlier is that when you're using custodial service like Lightning in one way, shape, or form, you're not really using your savings. You're not leaving your savings on there. So really what you're doing is you're trusting someone with the funds that you're using to spend on a daily basis. So I think there is a little bit of a nuance that people should realize, like, hey, it's custodying your savings with someone on Bitcoin is not a good thing. It's, we should always stay away from that, take self-custody of your own Bitcoins. But I don't think that there's too much of an attack vector when you're storing, like, say, 50,000 to 150,000 sats that you're using on a daily basis, or maybe even more than that.
Right. I totally agree with that. I'm obviously very into self-custody myself. I think it's, a core tenet of Bitcoin. And I don't think, Fedimint or Cashew changes that. I think people already use custodians for use cases like this. And hopefully we can, sort of build better custodians. Now, I think there's a separate conversation as far as like into the future, how does Bitcoin scale? Like, are these eCash solutions the only way to do that? And I definitely don't think that. I think there's a lot of different ways to scale self-custody as well. But for now, like, especially for this use case of like you said, small spending money, not savings, really easy to use Lightning wallet that is Uncle Jim friendly, I think Fedimint's a great application of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, a lot of this stuff goes over my head, and Lightning especially goes over my head. I've tried to set up a Lightning channel before, and it just got so confusing and frustrating that I said, screw this, I'm going the custodial route. And I just kind of like told myself, like, I'm not going to use any more than 500,000 sats on a custodial service so that I don't lose more than 500,000 sats. And that has been a good process for me. Maybe that's not everyone else's process, but I think that for me, that's what has been the easiest to use. The hardest part has been finding a good swap service to swap my Bitcoin from Bitcoin to Lightning. But it sounds kind of like if I went with a federated version of Fedimint, it might be a little easier to do that.
Yeah, potentially. It's still early. There's still not many public federations. But yeah, that's the goal. That's the use case for where it slots in as far as a Bitcoin solution. So
definitely. So can you tell us specifically like who is the targeted user for Fedimint? Is it all Bitcoiners, or is there a specific type of person that would use it, or what does that look like? And then after that, I'd like to touch on Fedipool.
Sure. So I'd say that I wouldn't say it's definitely not all Bitcoin users. I mean, there's a large and a lot of Bitcoin users are always like, pretty much any Bitcoin user that is able to take self-custody, I think they should, especially now. Everyone talks about scaling and things. We're not at a point where owning UTXO is unavailable to a lot of people. So today, if you can take self-custody, you should. I think the target user is someone that, especially so like Fedi, the company, they're targeting these like, developing communities to run these federations for the community. And I think they're doing a great job with that. I think, more broadly, I think that model just applies to a lot of spots around the world, right? You could imagine meetups running a Fedimint, and supplying like an easy to use Lightning wallet for their attendees. Like I think anyone that maybe wants to use Lightning but doesn't want to go maybe through the headache of setting up and figuring out their own node. Again, if you can do that, I think you should. But it's a useful option, especially even for people that are maybe not into Bitcoin at all, but just want to like give it a try, right? It's a very easy onboarding experience. So
yeah, Justin, tell me if you agree with this, but it seems to me like the best users for Fedimint right now would be folks probably in like emerging markets, probably, places like, Costa Rica, El Salvador, where they do have a kind of a burgeoning group of Bitcoin merchants and maybe a little bit more ease with the consumers supporting those merchants who might need, a very easy Lightning integration that,
Definitely.
so they can interact. So that's, I think, the users that I think make the most sense. In the US, we have, pseudo micro payments with all these little apps and, whatever
Right.
it is, Cash App, Zelle, Apple Cash, whatever it is. But who knows? It may become important here too. But I get excited about it when I hear people, just like average people in these emerging markets in some of these developing countries, kind of being attracted to using it to support their local economy and the merchants there who are accepting Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100%. I think I thought Bitcoin Beach Wallet, I know they rebranded. Like for a while, they were running like an on-chain. I think it was non-custodial, and then they had a Lightning portion that was custodial, that was sort of held by the community. And so I agree with you. I think the cases that make the most sense are communities like that maybe already have like a lot of Bitcoin merchants, and just want an easy solution for payments. And then, yeah, you mentioned like the micropayment apps. Like I like to think of like the eCash transactions as like just a way better version of Venmo. Like Venmo will just like dox your transaction to literally everyone, Venmo, and then all your friends. Whereas with eCash, like not even the custodian knows that transaction.
I mean, I can't imagine a lot of these people I see in my feed on Venmo. It's like, man, you're only paying your babysitter like $15. What the heck?
Right.
Where do I find a baby? No, I'm just kidding. It just, like it's weird. Like you just see, or the kinds of emojis, and you can decipher what people are using Venmo for. I don't know. I hate
it's
that.
Public by default. Yeah. Fedimint is private by default, and you cannot undo that privacy. So
that's good. We like that. We like privacy. So go ahead and just kind of explain. We've got a little bit of time left. High level, what is Fedipool, and what is your kind of like expertise in it?
Sure. I can't claim any expertise in it, to be honest. I'm just aware of the idea, and I thought it was a interesting link between Fedimints and mining pools. So just at a high level, like so I mentioned like Fedimint is an eCash protocol primarily, but we spend a lot of time building what we're calling like the module system, where it essentially allows developers to sort of plug in other applications into a Fedimint. So eCash is just one module that a Fedimint can run. And you mentioned, like in the intro, I built this Nostr module, so you can sort of do other interesting things with Fedimint. One idea that's been floated around for a little while now, it's been, I think, over a year, is this idea like a Fedipool, or my friend Cody always calls it Poolymint, but we're still debating the name. But the idea is essentially like, so mining pools are already custodying Bitcoin, right? They have to custody Bitcoin because, you know, the Coinbase transaction has to go to someone, right? And in a world with no pools, that would go to, you know, the miner, whoever found the block. But obviously, we live in a world with pools to like spread out variance and whatnot of payouts. So mining pools already custody Bitcoin on behalf of their miners. And the idea with Fedipool is to just replace like the centralized mining pool with a federation, so that, yeah, maybe it's not just one pool that is custodying the Bitcoin. So the idea is pretty early. There's sort of a lot of unknowns as far as like how you would actually implement that. But that's it at a high level. And then, you know, there's some interesting things you could do with that, like potentially paying out your miners in eCash. They could potentially get paid out faster. I know some miners are already offering Lightning withdrawals, which you could definitely do with Fedimint as well. But yeah, that's kind of the idea in a nutshell. It's still very early, and there's some people thinking about it, but I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a really cool idea. It's interesting to see what people like yourself and, you know, others working on the protocol are doing. Like I said in the beginning, a lot of it goes over my head, but I'm glad that there's smart people like yourself that are actually working on it and making the stuff happen and making it easier for users like myself. I'm very curious to get into it. I'd like to start using it. I'm probably going to go download the Fedi wallet and play around with it, you know, just throw some sats on it and see what I can do. So, yeah. Will, it sounded like you had something to say.
You know, I can't quite remember anymore, but it might have had something to do with decentralizing mining infrastructure, and maybe, you know, maybe the Fedipool can help do that in some way. I can kind of intuit how, but if you want to maybe flesh it out a bit, Justin.
Yeah, I don't want to sit here and claim that this is the solution for mining decentralization. I do think that it's becoming clear that, especially with pools that use FPPS for their payouts, so I forget what that stands for, but more and more pools are migrating to that, right? Like Brains recently did a few months ago, I believe. And it's becoming like, what people have found is that because of the capital requirements for that, lots of pools are simply using Antpool as their custodian. Like they're all using sort of the same block templates. And to me, that seemed like a problem. Like having, you know, essentially one, like a very centralized custodian of like almost 75% of the Coinbase payouts is quite a lot. So I don't know if and Fedipool is still just an idea. It would be cool to see something like that or any other. I'm hoping to look for more solutions to potential mining centralization, particularly around the payouts. I think that is a pressing problem. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Again, I don't want to claim that's the end all be all solution.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right take. And, you know, we just have to, as innovators and certainly the developers, just try to plug the holes for all threat vectors that we can conceive. And,
right,
you know, there's numerous threat vectors around, you know, mining centralization. at varying points in the infrastructure, payouts being one of them, and just any innovation around any of these is positive. So that's kind of what I just wanted to highlight there, I think.
Yeah, I know there's another project called Braidpool that is essentially trying to do like a peer-to-peer mining pool. And yeah, again, I don't know if that's the solution either. It does sound very interesting. Yeah, just we as Bitcoiners, we definitely need to be aware of these things. Make sure there's no shenanigans going on in the future. I think with mining, at least there is always sort of this soft check where if anything does start to happen, miners can sort of switch hash rate, right? They could move to a different pool. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
For sure. So, at the end of every episode, we ask all the guests a couple of questions, and we like to get the wide range of answers from every different person because everybody has like a different perspective. So, I'd love to ask you these questions. My first question is, what about Bitcoin and the financial landscape keeps you up at night?
Oh, that's a good one. I think the Bitcoin community, just in general, we need to be very diligent about preserving the values that make Bitcoin Bitcoin. I think like you said, running nodes, running the software that powers Bitcoin, I think is extremely important. I think it's very easy to slide into like just caring about price or just following the news about what the latest Bitcoin influencer said, and focusing a lot on that. And I just don't. I think you got to follow the signal as far as what got Bitcoin here in the first place. So I think as long as I think about how we can preserve those tenets of Bitcoin. So that's sort of what keeps me up at night, I guess.
For sure. So the next question is, what does Bitcoin mean to you?
What does Bitcoin mean to me? I think Bitcoin's money to me. Like it's the best money there's been. It has the best monetary policy, and it has the best tools around it. And I think it's on us to keep building better tools. But I mean, it's already painfully obvious that the legacy financial system is totally broken, and not just like monetarily, right? But like again, just try to send a wire transfer. It's going to take lots of headaches and way too long. So I think Bitcoin's money, and it's it's going to have all the different aspects of money, right? Like obviously store of value has been like how a lot of people get into it, but we're starting to see more circular economies and like actual use cases of Bitcoin as money. So I think that just continues to proliferate. Honestly, I think something like Nostr, you can see that on Nostr where people are just zapping around sats all the time, right? So Bitcoin doesn't just have one use case. It applies to people differently, and that's how money is. That's how people use money in different ways. So yeah,
that's a good answer. We haven't gotten an answer like that before, but it is Bitcoin is the best money that we've ever had. I like to call it the immaculate conception of money. I know that it didn't come out of nowhere. There were a lot of things that it was built upon, and that's kind of how Bitcoin came
like
into
Chami and
existence.
eCash, for example.
Exactly, like Chami and eCash.
For sure.
But it is the best form of money that we've ever had. And for me, I've said this before, is like Bitcoin is hope. And the reason I think it's hope is because we actually have the ability to store our energy and our time, which we trade for money. We get to store that in a form of money that can't be stolen from us and can't be debased and just kind of erased over time. So, it is the best form of money. I really like that answer.
Totally
Awesome.
agreed. Yeah.
So, Justin, where can our audience find more about the Fedimint protocol, where can they find out more about you? How can they, if you'd like them to, how can they get in contact with you to just learn more? Just, go ahead and shill anything that you want to shill and shout out anything you want to shout out.
For sure. Yeah, Fedimint. I can encourage people to download the Fedi app and give it a try. Like I said, there's some public federations, so you can try those or set up your own. You can learn more about Fedimint either there's, I believe, fedimint.org, or you can join the developer Discord, and we hang out in there and happy to help anyone that comes through. It is a bit more developer oriented in the Discord though. And yeah, for myself, I'm on Twitter and Nostr, or X, I guess, at Mr. Cool Guy, M1 STERC001 GUI. And then I also run the Minneapolis Bit Devs. So I'm there every month. We meet once a month at a co-working space called Improving Inc. in Minneapolis. We post all of our dates online at bitdevsmpls.org. And yeah, we do happy to have it. So BitDevs is open to anyone. It's not just developer focused. We try to make it, very, very approachable. So definitely come join us there if you can. And then we also have the Minneapolis monthly social meetup. So I'm there most months. There will be a meetup actually this upcoming Tuesday on September 3rd. So I'll be there if anyone wants to come hang out.
Awesome. Yeah, by the time this episode comes out, it'll definitely have passed, but they'll have to catch the next one. I'll make sure to share and link any and all of those in the show notes in the description. Before we let you go, so far, because we do have our conference coming up in September at the end of this next month, and you're, close to an area you kind of talked about wanting to go, we're going to give you 2 free tickets to that. So one is for yourself. If you, are able to, we'd love for you to give the other ticket away at one of your meetups, or, maybe even here on September 3rd, you could give the other ticket away. If you have a guest that you want to go with you, we'd love for you to come out and join us for that conference, just to kind of learn some more about mining and spend some time with us.
Thank you guys. Much appreciated. Yeah,
absolutely.
I will definitely find someone to take the other ticket. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. So I'll get in contact with you on Telegram and make sure that you get access to that. So guys, this was the Build a Mind podcast. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys coming. This is actually episode 30. So, we're just cranking out episodes, Will and I, and it's been a lot of fun kind of learning and iterating and getting better. Along the lines of getting better, we appreciate any and all feedback. We haven't had a whole lot of feedback from our audience so far. So if you guys could, man, just send me an email, trevor@bitcoinminingworld.com. Send me an email, just tell me how we're doing. Let us know. Also, if you watch on Fountain, you can send us a boost, and that kind of gives us a little bit of feedback as well. I like to shout everybody out who does give us a boost on Fountain. And, we're kind of toying with maybe doing a giveaway in the future, and that's probably how we'll do it. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you for being here. Justin, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
Please note, the Build a Mind podcast provides information for general educational purposes only. This information should not be construed as legal, financial, or investment advice. We do not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of any information presented, and we encourage you to consult with a professional advisor, legal advisor, and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The Build a Mind podcast and its affiliates are not responsible for any losses incurred as a result of using the information provided.